This is LWT with the best of the laps from the Australian Grand Prix.
Hello there, welcome to Melbourne. Coming up, the best of the first round of the 2002 Championship, the Australian Grand Prix. Now, they've been complaining about their summer in these parts, and for the first time, we've had a rain-ruined qualifying session.
There's a flurry of early activity as the skies darken. Jordan's Japanese debutant, Takuma Sato, sees his first F1 qualifying end just as it started. An accident in practice leaves him without a car, but he's allowed to race, starting from the back. David Coulthard is the first of the front-runners to post a banker lap, but seconds later, Ralf Schumacher puts himself on pole. Enter the Ferraris. Michael Schumacher making it look easy. That 2001 car better than ever. But Barrichello also enjoying the best machine in the business. He's fastest, but by 5/1000ths of a second. Then it rains, and how? So, Barrichello's first pole in 30 races and Ferrari's 150th, the Schumacher brothers, ahead of Coulthard, Raikkonen and Montoya. Good performance from Trulli and the Brazilian rookie Felipe Massa in the Sauber. Jenson Button, he's disappointed to be outside the top 10. Solid work from the Toyota driver Salo and the Scot Alan McNish. Fine showing from the Aussie Mark Webber moves Minardi up at the expense of Jaguar. Eddie Irvine and De La Rosa have serious problems.
Well, both arrows failing to get away in the parade lap, so they're in the pit lane. It's the Australian Grand Prix then with Martin Brundle and James Allen.
2 lights, 3 lights. You know what's coming, don't you? Ready? You ready? Let's go! Fantastic start by one of the Benzos. Ralf Schumacher challenges Barrichello. Michael Schumacher's got a poor start, but Ralf is motoring into second place, and he hits Rubens Barrichello. Huge accident! Oh my goodness! Rubens rear wings off. There goes Ralf Schumacher. And I think they're going to have to restart it. There's an absolute yes. And one of the Bennett's is on fire. That's Jenson Button. Martin.
Total carnage. It started with Ralf hitting the back of Barrichello, flying into the air, and then everybody shunting behind in sympathy. Schumacher, Michael that is, was slow away. They won't fix that car, Jenson. You'll have to jump in the spare car. Unfortunately, that spare car is set up at the moment for Jarno Trulli. So Jenson Button, that's too much bodywork to repair. Ralf out of the race. I don't see a red flag situation at the moment. Can't see any signs on our computers that they have the red flags out, but surely they must do so.
That was the car of Olivier Panis, the BAR. There's Rubens Barrichello, the pole sitter. Here it is, Martin. Talk us through it.
And what you're going to see is Rubens coming over to take the line, and he pulls. In fact, no, that was... Yes, in fact, it was Rubens. He'd moved over to the right-hand side of the grid and started to decelerate for turn 1 and just completely caught Ralf out. Ralf clearly nowhere near the getting on the brakes and just reared straight up the back, reminiscent, of course, of Villeneuve hitting Ralf Schumacher last year. And around goes the Ferrari through the air. Luckily comes down nose first for Ralf, and he has a fairly harmless tag with the wall. And there is Michael coming across the gravel. Coulthard in the lead of the race then. And then just carnage behind as everybody jumps on the brakes, and cold tyres, cold brakes, a lot of inertia, full tanks of fuel. You just can't slow them down. What a mess.
Both Saubers look like they've been affected as you look at the flames from Jenson Button's car, which is now stranded at turn 4. The safety car is on the circuit. Maybe they're going to try and run it behind the safety car while they clear the mess, which would certainly play into the hands of David Coulthard and Michael Schumacher.
Safety car deployed. Well, that amazes me, I have to say, with so much debris. And look, there were a lot of cars coming up the inside. They cut across the grass before they ever arrived into one, and that's why you had so many T-bone situations going. Here we see then onboard Ralph, and just connects, look, and oh, so nearly that flipped over backwards, and he's a passenger just heading towards the inevitable scene of the accident.
Did you hear the engine noise though? And he's in the air.
He was still on it, wasn't he?
He really was.
Yeah.
But did you think Rubens braked a bit early for that corner? It seemed a little early to me.
Well, I think he put himself up the inside to cover his position. Michael was slow away alongside him on the grid. Rubens went to cover. There's no point in them running back. It's under safety car. It's not going to be red flagged. So we have a scenario where you cannot restart the race, even if the spare car's ready for you.
Bad news for the Sauber team, bad news for this man, Rubens Barrichello. So happy, so relaxed after getting pole position yesterday. We can tell you the driver's out. Jenson Button, Alan McNish, unfortunately, on his debut with the Toyota team. Felipe Massa, we've seen Rubens Barrichello as well, who's now talking furiously with Jean Todt, who's telling him, no, it's all over, Rubens, I'm afraid. Giancarlo Fisichella, a splendid qualifying for him, for Jordan in 8th place. He's out, Panis is out, Heidfeld is out, and Salo has come into the pit lane. Ted, what can you tell us?
Well, James, Ralf Schumacher's just arrived back outside the Williams garage. He looks fine. It was a huge crash, went somersaulting over as we saw. It was a massive crash, but he is fine, just shaking his head, talking to Sam Michael, the Williams technical boss. Now, we think Kimi Räikkönen is coming in. We think he's damaged his nose cone. Yes, here he comes in for a stop. They have a new nose cone for him. They're currently taking the car off the jacks. They will change the tyres anyway. And yes, they replaced the nose cone, putting a new one on with a new front wing assembly as well. He's gesturing towards Ron Dennis. I'm not quite sure what that's all about. But here we go. The tyre's on, the nose is on. He's not going anywhere. He's not going anywhere. There seems to be something wrong with the back of his seat, James.
Maybe he's got some debris that's gone down the back. It's not really costing him any time. Because the safety car is out, he can rejoin, albeit at the back. But quite clearly, there's some debris or maybe some gravel. He went through the gravel. Raikkonen locked a wheel into that first corner, went very, very deep into the gravel, and probably just sitting on some sharp stones. Imagine having just one stone in your shoe. Well, a seat full of stones. And he's really not wanting to pull 3 to 4G around a racetrack without pressing into his spine. But he hasn't cost himself any time because the pack are behind the safety car. He will rejoin last, but hey, it doesn't matter this afternoon, does it? Now look, Ralph had a fabulous start, and this is why I suspect Rubens went over to cover his position. Rubens then started to come back, and Ralph unsighted, really.
It's lap 4 of the Australian Grand Prix, and do not adjust your sets. They do seem to be going very slowly. That's because we haven't been racing. We've been behind a safety car, but now we are racing. And as they come across the start-finish line this time, we'll go green for lap 5 of the Australian Grand Prix. David Coulthard in the lead then. He's got a good drive out of the final corner. Jarno Trulli is second. Montoya is third. Michael Schumacher, the danger man, in 4th place. Eddie Irvine for Jagger in 5th. De La Rosa 6th. Sato up in 7th place and Mark Webber in 8th. But watch Montoya. Already he's looking racy. Already he looks like he's going to make a challenge on Trulli.
And this is the difficult part of the restart now. Their tyre pressures will be down 4 or 5 PSI. Montoya very slow there. Has he got a problem? Or did he just outbrake himself in having a look around Jarno Trulli? But that's allowed and released Michael Schumacher immediately. But the tyre pressures are down 4 or 5 PSI, so the ride heights are down 2 to 3 mil, and it's absolutely critical for the balance and the overall grip that you have. And this is where experience counts, no doubt about it, for a Grand Prix driver.
Williams mechanics out in the pit lane for Juan Montoya. Perhaps he's got some kind of problem. Certainly, that looked like a very strange incident, not the kind of thing we expect from a driver of Montoya's caliber, if indeed it was a driver error. But the mechanic's ready. Maybe he's got a puncture because they're getting tyres out in the pit lane. But look at Michael Schumacher already crawling all over the back of the Renault of Jarno Trulli. Trulli will be looking for a podium today. He won't want to do anything stupid, but Michael Schumacher, he's looking for the win.
Yes, he is, and Jarno Trulli having to go defensive straight away. They're on lap 6 at the moment, and Trulli under an awful lot of pressure from Michael. Michael dancing around in his mirrors. Montoya then still in touch in the background, so it just looked like a temporary glitch. I think he just went in too deep into turn 3, and Michael then with a superb position for a slipstream down the pit straight, and the Ferrari is not particularly quick in a straight line because they're running so much wing. That's why they're fast around here, so much downforce. Michael was nowhere near overtaking him. But he seemed to try. He was having a go at it, wasn't he? Why does he feel he needs to get by so quickly? Well, he doesn't want Coulthard to get too comfortable out front. So Juan Montoya, who made a mistake on the first restarted lap when he tried to get past Jarno Trulli, gave Michael Schumacher the opportunity to pass him. He is now right on the back of the reigning world champion, and we're going to see yet another one of these great battles, hopefully, between Schumacher and Montoya that we enjoyed so much last season. Well, remember, both Williams have had very hot brakes this weekend. At one point, with Montoya's car, they had to put the front brakes out with a fire extinguisher. They actually caught fire when he stopped in at the pits for an adjustment. So I would imagine his brakes are having to be run very cool, and we know the cars are fat on fuel. Brakes here are critical, and I think that's why cars tend to fly here as well. You've got very high-speed arrivals into a lot of big stops on what is effectively a street-style circuit, and therefore I think Montoya's just not got the confidence under braking that he needs. Look at Michael Schumacher crawling all over the back of Jarno Trulli, trying to make him make a mistake. Well, there's an old saying, make hay while the sun shines. We haven't seen too much sun this weekend in Melbourne, but David Coulthard is doing just that, pulling out faster sector times all the way. He's now 4.5 seconds clear of Jarno Trulli. Make that 6.6 as Trulli crosses the line. Schumacher not close enough this time, and Coulthard is getting away at the front. Well, the one clear overtaking spot, I think. Oh, and he's lost it. Trulli's lost it on the exit. And that is surprising to see. What a bad mistake there for Jarno Trulli. Really poor mistake. Surprising with traction control that he was able to get it that far out of shape. It really was. So that's bad news for Coulthard. 6 seconds up front. But he needed Jarno Trulli to hold up Michael Schumacher and Montoya. Here he goes on the exit of turn 2. Very surprising. And he will be surprised too. Jarno Trulli will be more surprised than anybody that the traction control, the electronics, allowed his car to get that far out of shape. So was that his fault or the car's fault? You've got to put it down to the car. He should be able to nail it out of there without any difficulty, unless he had a right rear puncture or something like that. Remember, a lot of debris on the racetrack from that first corner incident after the start, and, well, disaster for Jarno Trulli. What a shame. His heart will have sunk, and so will that of Flavio Briatore, the Renault team boss. Trulli in the wall from a very promising second position. And that's great news for Michael Schumacher, who now finds himself right behind. And we got the safety car back out again, Martin, because Trulli's car in a dangerous place. That's terrible for David Coulthard, having built that big lead. But Trulli's car bounced back onto the track, and it's the only safe and sensible decision, I think, to bring the safety car back out again. What an eventful few laps we've had here at Albert Park. We're only 9 laps into this motor race, and we've only got 12 cars left. You're looking down there at Enrique Benoldi. Yeah, they've obviously restarted that car, and Benoldi will be 9 laps behind. So Benoldi has joined the race. Remember, he couldn't start on the grid, so both arrows now in the race, albeit a long way behind. Louise, you're down there with Ralf Schumacher, I understand.
Ralf, that looked like a very nasty moment.
It was. I mean, it was a great start. A shame that I couldn't make use out of it. I mean, Rubens changed the direction twice too much, and that was the main problem about it. I mean, he was braking a fraction too early, but that is down to his decision.
Lights out on the safety car this time, so I think we're going to get a restart here at Melbourne. And about time, because David Coulthard, Michael Schumacher and Juan Pablo Montoya are desperate to get this race going. So too is Eddie Irvine. He can't quite believe his luck, finding himself so far up there. So they've got to build up tyre temperature, brake temperature as soon as they can. Coulthard then leading the pack. He becomes the pace car. Pace car moving off into the distance. He can now take control of that speed. Coulthard seeming ready to attack then. He wants to get a good restart if he can. They're picking up speed, as you can see, and a lock-up from Coulthard into the final corner. We're still not racing it, and Coulthard's off! Oh my goodness, before the race has even restarted, David Coulthard has made a mistake, and Montoya and Schumacher are gone. Yeah, Schumacher ran wide too. Montoya then gets a look at him as they head down to the first corner.
Schumacher covers the inside line. Montoya says, I'll take the outside then, and sweeps into the lead of the Grand Prix. Very easily there for Juan Pablo Montoya. Now can he stretch away, pick up any kind of lead and surprise everybody in the Formula 1 paddock? There's a replay. Coulthard blocks the left front, cold brakes or whatever, runs wide onto the grass, loses 4 places. He's now down into 5th place, David Coulthard, having led all of the Grand Prix so far after that first corner shut. Now Michael Schumacher in the Ferrari beginning to build up heat in those tyres and brakes and seemingly moving back up onto the tail of the Williams.
A fabulous move by Juan Montoya, wasn't it? Just like Brazil last year, off the restart, and you got a better drop than Michael Schumacher, as Martin was saying, side by side, and he made it look easy, didn't he?
Yes, Coulthard went off. Schumacher seemed to begin to follow him off the road, and that's what gave Montoya the slingshot down the pit straight, locked his wheels at the end, but just came off the brake pedal, turned the wheel, and it went in nicely for him. Well, it's been the talk of the winter, hasn't it? Will Montoya establish authority and seniority over Michael Schumacher? And he certainly put a good move on to take that lead. But now Michael, with clearly a much faster package, with everything up to temperature, a man who was a full 8/10 faster than any of them last time around, is David Coulthard down in 4th place. He is going to be so angry, so frustrated at what was a silly mistake on his part. But Michael then nowhere near on the way through to.
We've seen a few mistakes today, haven't we, already? It is, I know it's the first day back at school for a lot of these drivers, but they've been testing throughout the winter. Surely some of these mistakes are a bit off kilter, aren't they?
I think it's because of everything's cold. They're really struggling to find grip around here. Usually there's been a lot of running around here. The V8s are out, everything is out, laying rubber down onto the racetrack. And it just hasn't happened with the changeable conditions this weekend. And I think this track is much slipperier than we're used to.
Well, talk about slippery. Michael Schumacher seems to have the edge through this final sequence of the lap. He gets alongside Juan Montoya. Maybe Montoya's just playing with him, who knows, because he knows he has the extra power down the straight.
Yeah, Montoya had to go defensive, and it cost himself a lot of time. And Michael with a good slipstream, but we saw he couldn't even overtake the Renault down there. So Montoya, I don't think it'll be an easy car to pass in a straight line.
Did you see him look in his right mirror there? It was like he was saying, "Come on, if you think you're hard enough, come on."
Yeah, but hang on,
Whoa!
He's still having a look. Michael has so much more confidence under braking. We've seen Montoya struggle all through this amazingly active race. We're just on the 15th lap. There's been so much action already this afternoon, but a clear Achilles heel at the moment is under braking for the Williams.
So you think the Williams has brake problems? He's not able to get them. Oh, there's David Coulthard just going off. I don't know if that's a different incident from before. That's the second time Coulthard's gone off onto the grass because he threw away the lead in turn 15. Now Michael Schumacher right under the gearbox of Juan Montoya as they come down to turn 1. He goes to the outside line. Montoya blocks. He takes a tighter line on the exit. Michael Schumacher is alongside him, side by side out of turn 2, and Schumacher is through into the lead. Juan Montoya into 2nd place. A great move, Martin.
It was. Montoya just took too long being defensive. You're only allowed to move across once, but he didn't need to stay to the right that long and made the turn into the first corner much more acute, and it gave Michael an easy run through after that. So I think a little bit of a technical error there, you'd have to say, from Montoya, and just gave Michael Schumacher a clean run at him on the exit. And now we'll see how fast he is, and now we'll see what can Kimi Räikkönen do about the Williams. Michael Schumacher with another blistering 1:29.6 for another new fastest lap of the race. And that is turning into a disaster corner for David Coulthard this afternoon. That is where he went off before the restart when he was leading the Grand Prix and dropped back to 5th. He's now up to 4th, but it's cost him 21 seconds. So Coulthard then clearly with a problem. Coulthard with a technical problem. He is going very slowly.
It sounds to me like his engine's cutting out, Martin. You can hear it stuttering and cutting out. David Coulthard is certainly no muppet. and he wouldn't go off the road 3 times like that without some kind of problem. Ted, what can you tell us?
James, something is definitely very, very wrong with this Scotsman's car. About 10 seconds, 15 seconds perhaps before he spun, his engineer Pat Prix and the McLaren technical director Adrian Newey came off their pit wall and scurried with worried looks on their faces towards the back of the garage where they keep the computers, the telemetry, the engine management systems. I don't know if it's engine or not, but something's very definitely wrong.
It sounds, I mean, there's no blue smoke, so it sounds like, as he's got 2 cars bearing down on him, sounds to me as if Coulthard's car had just been electrical gremlin. Maybe they can adjust it in the pits, but now suddenly it's flying again, isn't it? Surely it's just picked up speed again.
Yep, definitely going quickly. Props the sight of Eddie Irvine about to pass him, did that to him. Ooh, it's a bit close. Coulthard getting out of the way, though. Irvine moves up, would you believe it, into 4th place for Jaguar. The entire Jaguar establishment, Nicky Lauda 2. That was a pass for position, Martin, and that's 4th place now for Eddie Irvine. Mika Salo, there was just being lapped as well. You saw him going through. Coulthard not coming into the pits, though. He's going by, continuing on. Presumably radio traffic between him and the team, just discussing what's going on.
Well, remember, they can now change that car from the pits. For the first time, you can now communicate from the pits to the car electronically. And if there is an electrical gremlin or a mapping gremlin in there, because all of a sudden that McLaren took off, didn't it? And then suddenly stuttering back down again. So maybe they're hoping to address the issue and not waste time coming in the pits. So Eddie Irvine then, P4, he's now lapping 5 to 6 seconds slower than our leader, and we are down to 10 runners still, with Bernoldi a full 8 laps behind as the 11th runner, but under investigation.
It's a bit like watching a drinking competition to see who's going to fall on the floor last, isn't it? At the moment, we've got 8 runners in serious contention, with Mika Salo a lap down, Young on a lap down as well now, but Mark Webber is in the points for Australia at the moment. David Coulthard is stuttering along, but he's only 11 seconds ahead of the Australian. Could Webber get past him and take 5th place for Australia? We're approaching half distance in this race. There's been so much going on the track, we haven't even talked about race strategy, but I can tell you it's traditionally a one-stop race this, with that stop around about lap 31. That's what they've done over the last few years. And Mark Webber has passed David Coulthard. Mark Webber up into 5th place. The 25-year-old Australian driver making his debut in the Australian-owned Minardi team. We'll see him shortly, no doubt. He's gone past David Coulthard, whose McLaren has been misfiring and having all sorts of problems. And this is an unbelievable story here on the streets of Albert Park in Melbourne. There he is, and the crowd, as you can see, they're waving him on as he goes past the start-finish line. They're going to be waving and crossing everything for the next 33 laps. Will this car make it through to the finish? Has it been reliable enough in testing to make him dream, to make him believe it might just be possible to get points on his racing debut?
And Louise is with Rubens Barrichello.
Rubens, Ralph said you changed your line several times, but ultimately it was a racing incident. Is that how you saw it?
Well, I think it's if I wasn't there, he wouldn't have made the corner. That's as simple as that.
So how do you see it then? Are you not happy with him?
Well, I just you know, even if he thinks that I move it too many times, I moved back to left probably a centimeter or so. If he wanted to overtake on the outside, he should have moved a lot further, and I didn't get in his way. He was just measuring myself, and then he didn't brake. So it's as simple as that.
We can see on the diamond screen outside our window here that Jacques Villeneuve is off the road. Now you can see it for yourself.
Villeneuve was in a points-paying position in 6th place, and he's crashed out, and that's very unfortunate for the BAR team. They've got a new team principal now, David Richards, who took over from Craig Pollock over the winter. A sort of Winter Palace revolution took place within the halls of BAR, the principal investors deciding that Pollock should be replaced by the man who's returned world rallying into a massive sport. And David Richards has left rallying in the hands of his lieutenants, but and is running the BAR team. There's Villeneuve for the 2nd year in a row, walking away from a crashed car at Albert Park.
We think Coulthard has finally ground to a halt. Yes, he has. And, well, he's had a miserable afternoon, hasn't he? 15 seconds. He's had to cruise around slow and off the pace because it's been sick. And now he's run out. And I think that's why he's been heading on. We've seen him fly off the road 4 times. It looks like he's got a box full of neutrals. Quite clearly, he's been having some gearbox problems of some sort, some kind of software problems, and you can hear him revving. It's just not prepared to go anywhere.
The first of our scheduled pit stops from Mark Webber in 5th place. The only man who's likely to take a place off him is Alex Young, his teammate, but he's not going to do that.
Now keep the revs nice and level, Mark. He's doing that. Hook it up to first gear. Make sure you got plenty of revs on. There's a fueling problem.
The fuel flap hasn't opened. The fueler hasn't been able to get the hose on.
But it was open when he came in the pits. I'm sure I saw it open when he came in the pits. Although it looks like, yeah, now they've managed to lever it open. And oh dear, they've already lost, look, 22, 23. And they still haven't got the fueler hooked up. Did you see the nozzle go in? Yes,
yep.
The secondary phase of it. Yes, it did. So away they go.
Nice and calm. Nice and calm. Don't stall it. Don't stall it. Away he goes. That should be his one and only fuel stop of the afternoon. 34.9 seconds. So about 21, 22 seconds slower than it should have been. But the good news for Mark Webber is that the only man that he's racing for position is Alex Young, and he still has to make his stop. And there is Young. Young up into 5th place on his debut, not his debut, sorry, first race of the season with Minardi. Was that a Jaguar behind Young?
Yeah, it's Della Rosa, of course, who's 1 lap down. So Della Rosa, I think that will cost Mark dearly. There's no doubt about it. It will cost him some track time. Whether it costs him a position remains to be seen. But Raikkonen has obviously had to hurry up from the pit lane. He's suddenly done a 1:28.5. He's been told, get on with it. Montoya's coming in the pits. There is Montoya making his one and only stop of the afternoon, and suddenly Raikkonen is doing the fastest lap of the race, quicker even than Michael Schumacher, of course, and the team won't be best pleased that he's been carrying that kind of pace around with him. And we see the Ferrari mechanics in the pit lane too. They've reacted to Montoya. They know that now if Michael comes in, no way Montoya will leapfrog in front of him.
Decent looking stop then for the Williams team. Those tyres look very new to me. Generally speaking, the Michelin tyres, as used by Williams, McLaren, Renault, have been running well and truly scrubbed in. They put a lot of laps on the front tyres and put new rear ones on. You can see confirmation of what Martin was telling you about Raikkonen's fastest lap. But Michael Schumacher into the pits this time by. In he comes, the race leader, enjoying a 22.5 second lead over Kimi Raikkonen. And, well, it's going to not be... in fact, I think Raikkonen may well take the lead. A question mark now is, how much fuel has he got? Obviously, Michael will get him back again at his pit stop. But I think briefly, Kimi Raikkonen might well lead a Grand Prix on his debut for McLaren.
That's a relatively short stop, of course, because there's 20 laps or so to the end of the race. So I think it'll be absolutely touch and go whether Raikkonen clears, and no, he's not. Michael is going to retain the lead of the Grand Prix because it was such a short fuel, and the reason is Raikkonen, I believe, is in the pits this time around. Yes, he is. Ted.
Raikkonen is indeed in the pits, Martin. The fuel's on. His first pit stop for McLaren. He's well used to them by now. The fuel hose is away and he's away. It's a decent enough stop. About 10 seconds, was it?
10.6 seconds, Ted. We can see you in the corner, but Kimi Raikkonen then, I thought he was about... Oh, and he's gone completely sideways into the first corner. No harm done, but that's not going to help his cause in putting pressure on Juan Pablo Montoya. Here he goes, look, cold tyres, and whoops, there we go. Had to give it an armful of opposite lock, and a trip across the grass, but absolutely no harm done.
So another McLaren takes the grass. Cold tyres, Martin. Why so much more slippy? Why you got to be careful with them?
They come out of they're not cold, of course. They've come out of the blankets, but somehow or other it's not the same as when you've got the whole carcass, the whole tyre fully up to operational temperature. So there's a few more degrees to go when you get out there, and also you get a bit of a glaze on the top. You get rubbish that you pick up in the pit lane itself as well. So the first 2 or 3 corners are always more slippery. And you certainly have to learn the characteristics with a new car and with a new tyre, as Raikkonen, of course, has.
So you're used to feeling the tyres you've just taken off. You're used to getting in the groove with the way they have been. And all of a sudden, you've got completely different feeling tyres on your car.
There's an element of that, because the car is much heavier because it's taken on a lot of fuel. But what Raikkonen didn't allow for is, as you trundle through the pits and down to the first corner, you're on the inside of the racetrack and you're picking up dust on the surface of the tyre, and you've never got the same amount of grip in that first corner.
So, as Alex Young comes out after his pit stop, he's now dropped back into 6th place. Mark Webber back into 5th. Eddie Irvine is still 4th. Kimi Raikkonen is 3rd. Juan Montoya is 2nd. And Michael Schumacher still leads as Irvine comes to put a lap on Young. That's right, yes, so Alex Young is 2 laps down on Schumacher and 1 lap down, and that's Mika Salo. Now he's racing Young for position, so has Young got some kind of problem, or is it just the old cold tyre syndrome Martin was just talking about?
That's because he's just been in for a pit stop, James. We saw him coming out of the pits, didn't we? But Young, I think, is just building up speed. He's just left the pits, and Salo, I think, will have a good chance to take that 6th place away from him. So 7 runners then, and De La Rosa making the 8th, but he's not shown so clearly on the computer here because he's 2 laps down. So that's why De La Rosa hasn't been making. We've seen him coming through the field. He's lapping quite quickly, hasn't been making up positions because he's 2 laps down. Kimi Räikkönen's never been on the podium. This, of course, was only his 2nd season of racing, but we think of him as having a stunning debut year last year as he goes through turn 4 there. But he has yet to be on the rostrum, on the podium at the end of a Grand Prix. Look how dark it is under those trees, and we often talk about that. And 6 is a tricky corner, but this year we haven't seen any drama at all down at turn 6 there. 8 was the sweeping right-hander into turn 9. The curb on the inside, slippery on the exit. You just have to be a little tiny correction. Car not working too bad in those type of corners, it seems. It's the slow ones. Now look, you can't see where the apex is. There it is. It's an act of blind faith to turn in there from 185 miles an hour down to 125, building back up again then to well over 180 miles an hour. And a challenging turn turns in, just nips in a bit at the end. That's where Sato smashed up the Jordan on Friday. And this is a corner where we all crashed in year 1, and since then we've not had any problems. I think that one caught us out, and once again a big understeer, braking a bit too late, and the final turn quite cautiously on the throttle over the start-finish line now, staying to the left, ready for the first right-hander.
Well, his teammate, David Coulthard, may be out of the race, but he's enjoying a chat now with Louise Goodman.
I'm not sure if he's going to be enjoying it, but there you go, James. David, you seem to have all sorts of problems from quite early on in that race.
Yeah, I had a gearbox down selection problem, which caught me out obviously at the start, and then when a few laps in, it threw itself into neutral, and then a bit later on in the race, it jammed in 6th gear.
Were the team trying to fix that from the garage? Was there anything they could do to help you?
Well, they obviously get the telemetry, so you can try and get an understanding of what's going on, and naturally we've got certain defaults, but there was nothing that was able to help that particular thing. Obviously something's broken inside the box.
Big disappointment, because you must have thought your luck was early on early in that race when you took the lead.
Yeah, obviously I was well, first of all shocked when I saw Ralph come over the back, and naturally your first concern is with him, but knowing that's all okay, then as a race you naturally take the places that you gain through incidents, and I thought things were looking good, and then obviously when I first had the problem and ran wide, I thought, this is not looking good, and then I was running clear for a while, and then obviously it became terminal.
Now, there is an interesting battle going on, because in 5th place, Mark Webber, the Australian on his debut for the Minardi team, is holding on in 5th, but Mika Salo lapping 1.5 to 2 seconds a lap faster, and if he carries on at this pace, he's going to catch the Australian before the end of the race, Martin.
He certainly is, and he's been taking a good 2.2 seconds. Salo, that is, taking that time out of 5th place man Mark Webber for some laps now. So Webber's going to have to step back on the gas. He mustn't think, okay, 2 points in the bag if I just keep it running. He's going to have to fight long and hard, I think, to keep that 5th. Salo homing in on him. Young, though, is out of the picture. The 7th place man, De La Rosa 8th, we know, is 5 laps behind the leaders and 2 laps behind the back of the pack, so he's not going to be an issue.
Lap 55 then, just counting them down to the finish, and everybody in the Minardi pit will be counting the laps down. Mark Webber now just 3.6 seconds ahead of Mika Salo. You'll soon be able to look at a picture of Webber and see Mika Salo in the background. That's how close it's getting. There's the race leader, Michael Schumacher. And with so much going on, so many fantastic performances, I have to ask you, who's your driver of the day? And it could be anybody here, really, couldn't it?
I think it could. I mean, it's an odd day, and you can't read too much into those that pick up points that haven't. I mean, it's great. It's great for Mark Webber. It's great for Jaguar. It's great for Toyota. You can't really read too much into it when you've got cars flying through the air, and we lost 9 cars in the first corner of this Grand Prix, if you remember. It's got to be Michael, really. Stayed out of trouble. Was biding his time till he got past Montoya. Good move around the outside of Montoya to retake the lead. So I think it'd have to go to Michael Schumacher. But all of these guys have been through a fairly traumatic afternoon.
So Martin Brundle's driver of the day, Michael Schumacher, not for the first time, and I've no doubt not for the last. There's Mika Salo, though, the bogeyman of Australia. Look at that. It's 2.37 seconds, and we've still got only 3 laps to go. Can Webber survive in 5th place? It looks like he's going to score a point anyway, because Alex Young is down in 7th and Pedro de la Rosa no longer classified, but Salo on the attack. He wants points for Toyota on their debut.
Well, Mark's realised what's going on now, and he's got back into the 1-minute 33s, and last time around actually was a 10th faster than Mika Salo, so he's not going to give up that place easily. Salo's, of course, got a lot more experience behind the wheel of a Grand Prix. Has led Grand Prix for Ferrari at Hockenheim when he replaced Michael Schumacher after he broke his leg. So, you know, Mika Salo does have a lot of experience. This is Mark Webber's first ever Grand Prix. Hacksawing away at the steering wheel, lost himself 1.5 seconds in there, smoking the right rear tyre. His traction control is not working that well, and now Salo is just going to smell his prey and realise that Webber is struggling to maintain this pace.
It's not really fitness, surely, Martin, because Webber's only 25. Mika Salo's a veteran at 35, and we know Webber is very, very fit because he cycled from John O'Groats to Land's End recently. But a strange mistake there.
He's just gone in. He's trying very hard. I think his tyres are getting down a little bit. That cost him dearly. But fitness is one thing. Grand Prix race fitness is entirely different. You use your muscles in a different way. You're strapped in the car so tight, much of your body can't function properly. So I don't know if Mark Webber's managed to complete a non-stop race distance in a Formula 1 car. I suspect not.
He's certainly completed plenty of race distances in a Formula 3000 car, but they're much shorter, much lower G-forces. And look at Salo thinking about a way to get past this Minardi. It's powered, the Minardi, by the Asia-Tech engine, formerly the Peugeot engine, and it's the least powerful engine in Formula 1. Now, the Toyota wouldn't claim to have the most powerful engine in Formula 1, but certainly on the speed traps, they've not been any slouches, and Salo is right in his wheel tracks now.
I think it's game over. I think Salo will have the grunt down the pit straight to take a reasonably easy pass. 2 laps to go, as you can see, and Webber goes defensive, and now he's really going to take some pain. And Mika is more experienced than to take a wild dive, but he needs to stay calm. Salo needs to stay calm and just get nicely in the slipstream zone of that Minardi, which surely he is, and he should. He lost a bit, didn't he, on the traction on the exit? And now it's going to be touch and go whether he can get down that pit straight. Nowhere near having a go, is he? He did not have the drive off the last corner. Mark Webber will be very pleased to know that. Salo did not have the traction off the last corner, even if he had the grunt down the straight.
Well, it's very interesting, Martin, because I was listening to Salo doing his practice starts, and it didn't seem to me that the traction control... Salo spun it! Oh, Australia rejoice! I'm sorry, Mika Salo, I'm not against you, but Australia certainly is. He's thrown it away with 2 laps to go, and Webber can really put the hammer down now, Martin.
Here he is, he went in too deep, got onto the marbly stuff on the outside, and a simple little spin. He's not going to lose a position over it, Mika Salo. He'll stay 6th, so he'll still get a World Championship point. And that was a bit of a clumsy error. I think his eye was on Mark Webber and not on the racetrack.
Well, the eyes of the crowd are only on one place. They came here to cheer Michael Schumacher. They'll be doing that, but nothing like as loud as they'll be cheering Mark Webber. But the reigning champion, he's done it all today. He kept out of trouble at the start when his teammate Rubens Barrichello collided with his brother Ralf Schumacher, taking 9 cars out of the start of this crazy Grand Prix. Michael kept out of trouble. He managed to start 4th at the restart, and he had Juan Montoya, David Coulthard and Jarno Trulli to contend with. He picked them off with precision, made a small mistake which allowed Montoya to pass him, but he then repassed Montoya in a battle of attrition between the 2 great fighters of Formula 1. He then kept his nose clean. Ferrari have been clever. They brought the 2001 car here, asking for reliability, over the 2002 car, and Michael Schumacher has done the business. 3 years in a row in Australia, Ferrari have won once again. Michael Schumacher wins the 2002 Australian Grand Prix. Wonderful performance by him. Juan Montoya is going to finish in second place. He's 24 seconds behind on the road, and Kimi Raikkonen on his debut for McLaren will get the final podium position. 2 arms aloft though for Michael, and as you said, Martin, a pretty perfect drive today.
I think it was, and he didn't lose his head, did he, early on. 6 points then for Montoya. Raikkonen still snaking around in the background for his first podium in Grand Prix racing and 4 World Championship points. Let's just run through the retirees while we're waiting for... Well, Irvine's a lap behind. Everybody else is a lap or more behind. Irvine in 4th, 1 lap behind. Webber to pick up the final World Championship point of the afternoon. And there then the crowd are rejoicing. They've seen a Ferrari win. They've seen an Aussie come home in 5th. Just running you through the retirements. Coulthard, mechanical problem. Villeneuve lost a rear wing, we think. Frentzen disqualified. Bernaldi disqualified for pit lane and start infringements. Sato caught up in the shunt and lost time a little bit later on in the first corner. Trulli spun out. We think he lost his traction control. Spun out while he was well up in the top 3. Barrichello taken out in the first corner by Ralf Schumacher, who ran into the back of him. Fisichella then caught up in that accident, as was Massa, Heidfeld, Button. We saw him on fire trying to get back to the pits, but it didn't happen. Panis and McNish also then all out in the first corner as Mark Webber punches the air, celebrates with the crowd. Webber's punching the air as hard as Michael Schumacher, isn't he?
Oh yes, oh yes. It's like sinking the last putt in the Open. The tears, the emotions. Racing sometimes can be beautiful.
It's a familiar sight then. Michael Schumacher, odds-on favourite, delivering once again. There's plenty more to come from Melbourne, including reaction from an overjoyed Minardi team. And you're back with us in Melbourne, where Michael Schumacher has become the first man to win the Australian Grand Prix 3 times in a row. But Aussie rules in these parts in the shape of Mark Webber.
Unbelievable to finish my first Grand Prix in the points, and I've got to thank this guy here. He's trying to help this small team get to the front, and we've got to enjoy this moment, but we've got the rest of the season ahead of us as well, and this is a great start for us.
Congratulations, Kimi, on the podium at your first Grand Prix for McLaren.
Yeah, thanks. It was quite an interesting and difficult race for me, because in the first corner there was shunt and I got something under my car and nothing happened when I still tried to steer the car, and I was very lucky to get back on the circuit.
After that, how was it for you? Was it a quiet race or a tough one for you?
No, of course it's always tough if you start from the last place and try to get as many places back up as possible. But yeah, the end of the race was some good fight with Montoya, and then I'm quite happy for the results.
It was a great race for you, Juan Pablo. Did you expect to be second at the beginning of this weekend?
I was expecting for a good result. After qualifying, I was really disappointed. I was really pissed off, actually, because the potential was there to be in the front. But luckily enough, paid off. You know, everything's got a reason, and it worked perfectly.
It was a mega fight with Michael, but his car was just too strong, right?
In a Ferrari here, since the first practice, they've been in a class of their own, and we couldn't really do anything.
10 points, victory, ideal results, except that we have only one car in the top. But for us it has gone well, and I'm obviously delighted and happy.
Tell us about that first lap incident. I know you've just been watching some pictures of it. What did you see from the cockpit?
You know, I'm a little bit in a difficult position, because one is my teammate and the other one is my brother. So don't expect me to really go after one. I leave it up to you to comment on that.
Confirmation of the result down under. 10 out of 10 Schumacher. Montoya second. Raikkonen on the podium for the first time. Irvine 3 points from absolutely nowhere. Webber getting his 2 for Australia. Mika Salo back in the F1 points. Now then, Mark Blundell, what about the start
for a kick-off. I mean, £10 million we worked it out, the damage, but so pleased nobody was injured here.
Oh, it's an incredible start, and you see the guys come off the line, the front row. Rubens Barrichello gets a little bit of a slow start, but Ralf Schumacher got a great start. This is the big incident, look at it. An unbelievable thing. Ralf Schumacher climbs over the back of Rubens. For my situation of looking at that as a driver, see this complete load of cars off the road there with Jenson Button being very, very damaged on that. Watch it here, Jim, yeah? Rubens moves over, defends his position, Ralf climbs up the back of him. For me, I put the blame at Ralf Schumacher's feet. He just wasn't aware of what was going on and didn't read Rubens Barrichello's moves. Yes, he moved over a couple of times and he's entitled to do that. At the same point, there was plenty of room on the left-hand side for Ralf to make a little bit of a move.
Although Ralph's saying that Rubens moved a couple of times and he's not allowed to do that.
You can make one definite move when you're doing an overtaking manoeuvre. Let's just watch this in camera. Accelerating, he's still accelerating and changing gears. Look, he's still got a load of momentum going into turn one. He's going way too quick. He climbs over the back. He's already doing over 150 miles an hour there. That's more than what a light aircraft needs to take off.
He's very fortunate he didn't flip over, isn't he?
Oh, unbelievable that he didn't flip over, and that could have been a big mess.
He's wondering whether to wear glasses in the races, Ralf Schumacher.
Oh, he should maybe wear glasses, I know that.
Listen, we had a terrific scrap, didn't we? Perhaps really a sign of things to come this season between Michael Schumacher and the man who you've backed from the very start, Juan Pablo Montoya.
Well, Montoya here. This was after a restart situation off the safety car. Montoya lines Schumacher up, makes an outstanding move on him. That all comes from IndyCar experience. They use safety cars a lot over there. Montoya is very experienced on cool tyres, knows how to work the car, get the most out of it. Schumacher, as good a driver as he is, does not have the experience what Montoya does in that situation.
How well has that old Ferrari worked round here?
Well, everybody down the pit lane would like a 2001 Ferrari at this point. Outstanding car, but they've evolved it. It's got a few modifications of what the 2002 car will have. But what a scary thought when they bring that new car out.
Melbourne's a big party city, isn't it? And they're going to party through the night, the Australians. Celebrate Minardi, Mark Webber, Paul Stoddart, the lot.
Well, the situation here, Salo was catching him up to take that 5th place, and I think every Australian around the track had their hands together and were praying. It came off. Salo went to make a little bit of a move, got wide, missed the apex by several feet on the marbles, around he spins. And the joy of the Minardi team, unbelievable, but yeah. Hats off to Minardi and Mark Webber.
Must mention Eddie Irvine. He was speechless, his car was so bad in qualifying, and he's nicked a few points here.
Well, I think more luck than judgment there. Jaguar for me are in the doldrums and I can't see them improving. Yes, they've collected some points today, but that will not be a trend for the season, I can assure you.
Quick sum up of how things stand after round one.
Schumacher and Ferrari's domination, Minardi and Mark Webber, outstanding, and then Toyota. They turned up for their first Grand Prix ever. They finished and they scored a point. That's unreal.
Cheers, Mark. Thank you very much indeed. Right, the next race. We go to Malaysia in a couple of weeks' time. The full ITV1 service, as always, qualifying live 4:30 on the Saturday morning. Rerun round about lunchtime on the Saturday, 1:30. The race, you can watch it live, ITV1, 6:40 on the Sunday morning. Repeat, lunchtime at 1:30 and the highlights at 11:45. Business as usual then for Michael Schumacher, off and running. But here in Melbourne, Ferrari have been upstaged by Minardi. Good night.